Throughout the 16th century, when the radiance of the Tudor dynasty cast its shadow across England, the supreme power of Queen Elizabeth I was not only preserved by political victories or diplomatic finesse. Behind the crimson velvet curtain of the palace, among the cold columns of Whitehall and Hampton Court, there existed another world, a world where the Queen's very life depended on strange remedies, superstitious cures, and the trembling hands of royal physicians. This was an age when medicine had not yet separated from mysticism, when doctors both read the pulse and watched the stars, when jars of herbs were prepared alongside whispered prayers, when a simple fever could lead to the decision to bleed with a razor or apply leeches, with the belief that this was science. And even the great Queen of England, known as the Virgin Queen, could not escape these treatments that were at once bizarre and painful. The story of the Queen and her physicians, strange Tudor medicine, not only reveals the medical secrets hidden in the shadows of the court, but also reflects an era where knowledge, belief, and power intertwined, creating a portrait both strange and haunting. If you love journeys back into the past, exploring history through details few dare to mention, subscribe to our channel and join us in opening the door to mysteries that have lain dormant for centuries. But to understand that strange world of medicine, we must return to the beginning, the fundamental mindset in which the Tudor physicians firmly believed it was not modern biological knowledge, nor the study of germs or bacteria, things entirely unknown at the time. Instead, human health and illness were explained through an ancient theory, originating in classical Greece and preserved for thousands of years, the doctrine of the four humours. According to this belief, the human body was composed of four elements: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. They had to exist in perfect balance. If even one of the four became disturbed, the body would immediately fall ill. And the task of the royal physicians, those who stood in the shadows behind Elizabeth's throne, was to restore balance at all costs. Thus, in the Tudor palaces, where candlelight cast shadows on the stone walls, one would not only see gilded chairs or crimson velvet curtains, but also grim medical instruments, sharp razors, wooden jars filled with leeches, and manuscripts crowded with the symbols of astrologers. This was the world we are about to enter, where blood was believed to be the root of every disease and also the answer to every cure. Chapter 1. Blood and the Humours, the origin of all disease. Originating from the ancient Greek medicine of Hippocrates and later systematized by Galen, the Roman physician. This theory claimed that the human body functioned through the balance of four substances: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. If they were in harmony, the body remained healthy. If they fell out of balance, illness appeared. With this mindset, treatment was not aimed at killing germs, a concept that did not yet exist, but at restoring equilibrium. In the Tudor court, this meant that any fever, headache, or fatigue suffered by Elizabeth could be attributed to excess blood or obstructed bile, and the most common treatment was bloodletting. Court physicians prepared jars of leeches kept in wooden containers, placing them upon the Queen's pale skin. The leeches latched on, drawing out drops of blood, in the belief that the bad blood was being removed, leaving the body lighter and healthier. In more severe cases, they used razors or sharp needles to cut into the veins of the arm, letting the blood flow into silver bowls. These scenes unfolded in the draughtless chambers of the palace, where crimson velvet curtains hung heavy, and silence was broken only by the faint groans of the patient. At the time, no one questioned whether the loss of blood weakened the body further. For them, this was science. Common people too believed that when ill, letting blood flow out was a way to release the evil humours within. But for the Queen, Each such occasion was a gamble with life and death. For one small error from the physician could turn a fever into a fatal end. Beyond bloodletting, there were also methods to warm or cool the body. If Elizabeth was deemed too hot, doctors advised drinking cold water, using cooling herbs, or bathing in diluted wine. Conversely, if she was judged too cold, they prescribed thick blankets, strong liqueur, and even opium to stimulate the body. All of it revolved around the notion of balancing the four humours, a framework at once simple and misguided, yet one that governed European medicine for thousands of years. In surviving records, we find that Elizabeth often reluctantly allowed her doctors to perform bloodletting. She was known for her firmness, even once scolding a physician who advised her to have a tooth pulled. "Have one of your own pulled first, then come back and speak to me." But in the grip of severe illness, even an unyielding queen had to submit to the cold blades. We, today, may look back and call it a dark age, when medicine was shackled by ancient beliefs. But for the Tudors, this was the pinnacle of knowledge. The royal physicians believed they were protecting the queen's life with science, never realizing that many treatments often harmed more than they helped. Yet it was precisely this unwavering faith in the theory of the four humours that allowed Tudor doctors to build their authority within the court. They were not merely healers, but guardians of the queen's health, indirectly holding the stability of the entire kingdom. And so, from the tiny leeches to the cuts of the bloodletting knives, from the belief in balance to the fear of death, we see clearly for Elizabeth I. The throne might shield her from political plots, but it could not protect her from the silver bowls filled with her own blood in the hands of her physicians. Chapter 2. Herbs and Secret Arts. Treasures from Nature. If blood and the lancet represented the harsh face of Tudor medicine, then herbs opened another world, softer, yet equally mysterious. In the apothecary chambers hidden behind the palace walls, royal physicians and apothecaries carefully preserved wooden chests filled with seeds, dried leaves, twisted roots, and glass jars containing dark liquids. The pungent smell of resin and the earthy aroma of herbs mingled with incense smoke, creating a space that felt both like a laboratory and a ritual altar. The Tudors believed that nature had granted mankind a remedy for every illness, provided one knew how to find and use it. Thus, each court physician was expected to master dozens of plants, from those growing in the palace gardens to rare specimens imported from the Americas or the Middle East. Mandrake, the root shaped like the human body, was the most coveted. Legend said that when pulled from the ground, it screamed a dreadful cry, capable of killing the hearer. In the Tudor court, mandrake was dried, ground, and prepared as a sedative for severe pain. Lavender and sage leaves were boiled into infusions to wash wounds and drive away evil humours. Even luxurious substances like powdered pearls or ivory mixed with honey were sprinkled on Elizabeth's swollen gums when she suffered from toothache, not only to soothe the pain, but also as a lavish ritual tied to royal status. What is striking is that in the Tudor era, the line between medicine and magic was exceedingly thin. A potion for the common cold might come with an amulet. A herbal mixture was not only boiled over fire, but also blessed with prayers, or prepared at the most favourable astrological hour. For the courtiers, combining herbs with mystical rites was not superstition, but a guarantee of the remedy's full power. The palace itself resembled a warehouse of the world merchants from Venice. Lisbon or Constantinople brought exotic spices and herbs, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, even opium from the east. Each grain of spice was as precious as gold, used both in cooking and revered as medicine against plague. Elizabeth I, known for her caution and suspicion, often had to rely on these remedies. When weakened or anxious, she was given herbal tea of mint and chamomile. When rashes appeared on her skin, she bathed in rosewater to maintain purity. And when suffering from stomach pain, her physicians presented a special herbal wine, at once fiery and bitter, but believed to stimulate life. Herbs were not merely medicine, they were political currency. Whoever possessed rare formulas had the chance to win the Queen's favour. Many physicians thus became powerful figures in court. Standing at a fragile boundary on one side lay royal grace, on the other disgrace and punishment. Today, many Tudor recipes sound bizarre. Roots ground with honey, bone ash mixed with oil, even animal blood stirred into wine. Yet they reflected the desperate hopes of a people living in a world ravaged by disease, from smallpox to plague, where anything might serve as salvation. For the Tudor court, these potions were not only cures, but also reassurance. For every time the Queen coughed or ran a fever, the entire nation trembled. And so, each pinch of dried leaves, each drop of herbal extract, became a symbol of hope that the Queen would rise again and continue to reign. Chapter 3. Medicine and Astrology, when the stars decided fate. In the 16th century, astrology was not a pastime, but a scientific discipline taught at prestigious universities such as Oxford and Cambridge. A physician of reputation was required to understand the laws of the heavens. The moon, Saturn, Mars, all were believed to hold power over the body and soul of human beings. A treatment could not always begin immediately, even if the patient was in pain, simply because the stars were not yet favorable. If Saturn was in a position considered dangerous, doctors would delay bloodletting. If the moon entered Pisces, sedatives were believed to lose effectiveness. Even a dose of herbal medicine might be prepared differently depending on which planet was ruling the zodiac sign of the patient. Records tell us that when Elizabeth fell ill with fever in the year 1562, her physicians not only debated which herbs to use, but also studied the Queen's horoscope. One argued that the sun was obscured, a sign of possible death. Another reassured that the star of life remained strong. In that moment, the fate of an entire nation seemed to rest in the hands of distant constellations. Astrology was applied not only to illness, but also to predict the rise and fall of the dynasty. John Dee, mathematician, astrologer, and trusted advisor to Elizabeth, once cast a star chart to advise the Queen on the date of her coronation. He also used astrology to reinforce the belief that Elizabeth was the predestined queen, chosen by fate to protect England. For her, astrology was not merely medicine, but also a political weapon. Thus, the Tudor court resembled a miniature cosmos. On one side were jars of herbs, leeches, and razors. On the other were star charts and thick Latin tomes recording celestial laws. Physicians did not only study the pulse, they also lifted their eyes to the heavens for answers. Yet within this curious blend, we glimpse the deep insecurity of the age. When plague swept through the land, when death might spring from the smallest wound, the Tudors sought reassurance in the stars, something distant, mysterious, but offering at least the sense that the order of the universe could explain earthly suffering. Elizabeth I, throughout her life, continued to place trust in astrological predictions. Despite her reputation for intelligence and pragmatism, for she understood better than anyone that the throne could not be secured by the sword alone, but also by belief, the belief that destiny itself had chosen her to lead an empire. Today, we may look back and see it as naivety, but for the Tudor court, the union of astrology and medicine was their way of confronting the fragility of life. And in every horoscope, in every favorable hour, it becomes clear the fate of a queen sometimes lay not only in the hands of her physicians, but also in the movements of the sky. Chapter 4. The hidden illnesses of the Queen. Behind the majesty of the Virgin Queen. Elizabeth I was still a human being of flesh and blood, with physical sufferings the court struggled to conceal from the eyes of the people. In the Tudor palace, the Queen's health was not a private matter, it was a state secret. A blemish, a fever, even a lost tooth could shake the faith of her subjects and awaken the ambitions of her enemies. From her 20s, Elizabeth faced a torment that would plague her for life-rotting teeth. Her addiction to sugar, a luxury imported from the Caribbean colonies, quickly destroyed her smile. Her teeth turned black, loosened, and fell out one by one. Foreign ambassadors described her mouth as a small graveyard, with only a few teeth clinging to inflamed gums. Every meal was an ordeal. Royal cooks were forced to stew meat into thin porridge so she could swallow it. The court physicians tried everything, sprinkling powdered ivory, crushed gemstones, even opium mixed with honey onto her gums to ease the pain. But Elizabeth was famously tough and defiant. When one doctor advised extracting a decayed tooth, she retorted, "Have one of your own pulled first, then return to speak with me." That reply silenced their attempts. Toothache was torment enough. But the greatest threat to her life was smallpox. In the year 1562, Elizabeth contracted the disease and quickly fell into a critical state. The entire palace was thrown into panic. Physicians exhausted every remedy: herbs, bloodletting, prayers, even magical rites. The court went so far as to prepare for her death, drawing up succession lists and debating the heir to the throne. Yet, by some miracle, the Queen survived. Her face, however, was left scarred, leading her physicians to create a special cosmetic, the toxic white lead makeup Elizabeth wore for the rest of her life to cover the marks. That mask of paint was both a symbol of power and a veil hiding the weakness the court could never allow to be revealed. Beyond smallpox, Elizabeth endured severe headaches and nervous exhaustion. The strain of rule, assassination plots, and perpetual loneliness drained her body. Records suggest she often suffered insomnia, resorting to herbal teas of chamomile and mint, and at times strong medicinal wines to soothe herself. On nights when the palace lay shrouded by heavy curtains, candlelight flickering against stone walls, Elizabeth sat alone, attended only by silent physicians and maids, waiting for the pain to subside. In her later years, ailments struck in forced tooth decay, osteoporosis, arthritis that turned walking into agony. Yet she strove to maintain an image of resilience before her court. Elizabeth knew well that a frail queen meant a fragile throne. So she chose to conceal it, draping herself in splendid gowns and dazzling jewels, so that all would see only glory, not weariness. It may be said that Elizabeth's body was a battlefield where Tudor medicine never truly triumphed. The physicians, with their lancets, herbs, and horoscopes, could only prolong her life temporarily. But it was the Queen's indomitable will that proved the most effective remedy. She endured, reigned for more than 40 years, and led England into its golden age. Despite the hidden pains no one outside the palace walls ever knew,